Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? A Silent Mike back with another video. Welcome. Before we hop in the video, today we're going to kind of talk about beginners, intermediate, and advanced programming, an overview, what you may need, what you may look for. But before we dive in, be sure to give this thing a thumbs up. Let's see if we get 1,000 likes on this video. Also, check out my Twitch stream. Twitch streaming every single day. Sometimes we're talking fitness, life, business, whatever it might be. Other times we're playing games, having a good time. We have a great community building there. New YouTube channel. We got a vlog channel going up and a bunch of gaming on that channel. So if you're into any kind of first-person shooters or gaming at all, check that one up. Also, some of my vlogs will be there. Let's dive in. So I get tons of questions of, hey man, I've been lifting so-and-so amount of years, my lifts are so-and-so, how do I progress? Or I'm getting back in the gym, how do I progress? I've lifted weights for a long time, but I wanna focus on strength, how do I progress, et cetera, et cetera. First off, I wanna kind of blanket statement say that my general opinion on a lot of programming for the majority of people is anti-snowflake theory. Everyone thinks they need the most individualized program because I'm me and I'm a special human. And once we get to some advanced levels, this may be true, and there's certain things in programming that we would tweak, but the overall structure and architecture of the program for the majority of people will look similar and will work, especially again for a beginner and intermediate. People always think that way for everything, the diet, the lifestyle, and the general, right, calories in, calories out, how much protein we should eat, etc. is going to be the same. The tweaks will come if you do have some kind of, whether it be disease or condition or whatever, lifestyle, so that you can kind of manipulate the carbs and fats. Maybe you kick out bread because it upsets your stomach. Maybe you kick out a certain vegetable because it hurts your stomach, whatever. That's kind of where the nuances of the individuality will come, but the blanket's going to be all very similar, and that's the same with programming. When we're talking about a true beginner, now, when we're talking about a true beginner with powerlifting, what a program might look like for someone who's never been in the gym or touched a barbell will look differently than someone who's lifted weights for aesthetic reasons or football reasons or what have you. If you're in the gym and you're doing, even if you're just doing a bunch of push-ups and chin-ups for the last 10 years, or some dumbbells or machines or whatever, and now you want to dive into powerlifting, that program will look a little bit different. You may be pushed into the intermediate category. And again, these are kind of spectrums, and it'll depend on genetics, how strong you are, how long you've been lifting, and the style of lifting you've been doing. It's not clear cut for the programming, and it's not clear cut for beginner, intermediate, advanced. What a beginner is, and what we're gonna cover today, and the beginners are somebody that's never touched a weight, never resistance trained to any extent. Maybe you've played some sports, maybe you haven't, but you haven't been in the gym lifting weights at all. An intermediate, typically, it'll depend, but will define it today, and each coach defines it a different way. Some people have a strength standard they go by. Some people go by years and time. Some people go by genetic limitations, or again, maybe how much you lift. What I kind of go by to at least go from beginner to advanced is when those beginner gains, the beginner progress stops. And for beginner progress, basically what we're able to do is allow ourselves to up the load every single week. There's multiple factors when you're looking at programming. There's exercise variations and exercise selection. There's sets and reps. There's time period, right? There's rest periods and timing our sets. And then there's obviously the load or intensity we're using within a set. And so for a beginner, we can keep everything the same and literally just add load every week. And that's what I suggest. If you're brand new, do some research, watch some, YouTube, Omar Isuf, Alan Thrall, hopefully some of my older videos, 3DMJ guys, Bryce Lewis. There's a lot of really good content creators that teach you how to squat, bench, deadlift. Watch some squat, bench, deadlift, maybe overhead press instructionals. Try to get a feel for it. Start with a load that you can handle for 5 reps in the gym, as perfect as you think your form can get. And we're going to just add 5 to 10% to that every single week. And I say 5 to 10% because, if there's a lady or a smaller person, you might be starting with 135 pounds on the bar on a deadlift. And some people, maybe even though they've never lifted weights, might be able to pull 315 or 405 for their first training. It'll vary depending on obviously body weight and genetics and past athletics, etc. From there, you're basically going to add that load to each lift, the 5 to 10%, for sets of 5, 3 sets of 5 in those exercises, as much as you can. Once you can't add load anymore, then we're going to I'm going to consider an intermediate, and we're going to change things up. That's called just linear progressive overload, and that's the goal, right? Our overall goal is to always do that. But the problem is our body can't adapt that quickly, and that's why we're not all squatting 2,000 pounds. If you could add 5 pounds to your squat every single week, I've squatted for a lot of weeks, almost multiple times a week for 10 years. I'd be squatting 2,000 pounds. I didn't do that math, but you get what I'm saying. Now, for the variety or the frequency, we want to stay strict, specific to those lifts so you can get better at those lifts and build the skill of those lifts. As we're getting stronger, building more muscle, we'll also get more efficient at the lifts, and that'll allow us to lift more weight. So the better you get at squat, bench, dead, the more you'll be able to lift. A basic frequency suggestion to start is what we're going to get into is bench, maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week if you don't want to overhead press. If you want to overhead press, maybe 2 bench and 2 overhead. Squats 2 to 3 times a week, and deadlift once a week to start. Once we get into intermediate or especially advanced phases, those frequencies can change, but for right now, we're gonna keep it kind of a blanket statement and keep it basic. So 2 squats a week, 2 benches a week, 2 overheads a week, and 1 deadlift. Now you can kind of split those up how you want. Obviously, you kind of want your lower body days to be split up a little bit. So maybe you want to squat on Monday and Friday and deadlift Wednesday. You can bench and overhead on those days also if you can only get to the gym 3 days a week. Or what you can do is split it up and do an upper day on Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday. Whatever works for your schedule, split that up, start adding load. Now, once we kind of plateau and we can't add 5 pounds a week, for some people that's going to be 2 months. For some people that might even just be a year of being able to add 5 to 10% on each one of those lifts and continue to make progress. Obviously, nutrition and sleep, genetics, all these things are going to play a role with what that top end of the linear straight progression is going to be. But once we get kind of into that intermediate phase now, you're decent at the squat, bench, dead. You kind of have some technique. You're probably not perfect at it, which none of us are. I've been doing it 10 years and there's still things I want to fix on each lift. You're always constantly refining those things little by little. Now is kind of when I think the majority of kind of templates, coaching, or whatever may come into play. And that's why we built Kaizen training. If those don't know, it's me, Barkwan, and Omar. We wanted to, in the intermediate phase is probably the biggest phase too. There's some people that have maybe trained for 6 years that are still kind of in that intermediate phase. The advanced, I think, are people that are really plateaued at a very high level and have taken this thing very, very seriously for a long, long time. So this intermediate phase is broad. And that's why we made the Kaizen Infinite Offseason. And basically this program, I think, is a good kind of way to go from linear progression into the next thing. It's an upper-lower split. Before you guys start calling me a sellout or telling me I'm pitching you something, it's free. It's absolutely free. And so that's why I'm informing you that it's still there. We made it. There's not much I would change to it. I think it's a very, very solid program. And right when you go from beginner into intermediate, you can follow it exactly. Once you get a little bit more advanced and you start to understand training, programming, exercise variation, you can kind of manipulate it yourselves based on your knowledge with different exercise variations within the same template. So it's free, kaizentraining.com, etc. Once we get more advanced, or even the deeper end of intermediate, the biggest things that'll change, I think, are obviously the intensities that we can work at. It's a balance, because the stronger you get, it doesn't necessarily mean you can handle the heavier loads more often. Sometimes you can. Some people are so efficient in their lifts and healthy that they can handle 90% very often, weekly, if not bi-weekly. But the biggest thing I think that can change is frequency, and then the overall volume you can handle. When you're a beginner and you're handling 3 sets of 5 at kind of a lighter weight, again, it's kind of a 7 out of 10 when you're in that beginner stage. It's 7 out of 10 effort with perfect form. The more advanced you get, you might be able to handle 10 sets of 5 weekly, plus other days, plus the frequency. Just because you have so much built up stimulus and adaptation within your body, you have the strength and you have the fitness, you're ready for that type of workouts. If you have different goals, if you have aesthetic goals, Kaizen also has different programs you can check out, but I have a lot of questions on people that have kind of trained or never trained at all, and their focus is performance and strength. And even if your goal or focus isn't directly on strength and you've never lifted before, what I just kind of outlined, the very basics, I think can work for everybody, because the squat, bench, deadlift mixed in with some kind of row, maybe a face pull, bent over row, dumbbell row, can really hit basically every muscle in the body and are great efficient ways to use your time within the gym. The best bang for your buck. You've probably heard a lot of times about a lot of programs, but those things will allow you to progress for a very long time. And then if you hop into the Kaizen Intermediate, you figure it out, you do it for a couple cycles. It's a 4-week cycle, but you can do it maybe for another year, and then you can start throwing in some exercise variations if you need to check out, pause squat, pause deadlift, close grip bench, etc., and really be the most efficient way to go through these things. I did not follow that path. I was all over the place with my training. There was a little bit less stuff on the internet at the time, or correct knowledge on the internet at the time in 2007, 2008, when I was trying to figure my way through things. I read some books and got some knowledge, but by that time it was a little too late. So hopefully I'm passing that on to you. Hopefully it helps out. Comment below what kind of topics, specific fitness, life, you want me to cover, my opinion, or hopefully share some of my knowledge with you guys below, and I'll take some of those topics for upcoming videos. New videos every Monday and Thursday. I appreciate you guys. Salam Mike. Catch you in the next one.